My name is Moses Quiquine. So yeah, I'm an artist and I'm also a designer. So yeah, my presentation is basically about my spiritual practice within my creative practice and how that's my fueling force. Um, so yeah, my dress is the piece in the middle there, and this piece is called the 10 Worlds. And in my Buddhist philosophy, which I practice, Nichiren Buddhism, by the way, um, the 10 worlds is basically all the different life states that are innate within all people, men and women, all the way from Buddha, all the way down to animality and hunger. And I wanted to create a piece that really represented all of those 10 worlds. But also, during that process of making this piece, I was really trying to connect with each individual fabric. So I wasn't just saying, oh, this looks cool. It was really about feeling the fabric and actually connecting with the mystic properties that it inherently has. A good example is at the front of this dress, you'll see that there's these beige stripes going down. And that's actually a fabric, very similar to these bags, actually. It's raffia. And it came from a fabric called a kuba, which is a West African fabric from Benin. And at the time, I didn't know really much about that fabric, but I felt such a strong energy from the fabric that it was about being a protective force, And I wanted to make a dress that was protective, So I had the exhibition and I was exhibiting this piece. And during the exhibition, a West African diplomat came over to me and he was really excited. And I was like, what's up, And he told me, he's like, that fabric, I'll tell you about that fabric. And I was like, please do. And I was a bit worried because, as I said, I didn't know too much about it. But he said, this fabric, the warriors in Benin, they would wear that before they go into battle because it protects them from the bullets and the arrows. And I thought to myself, well, I'll be damned, Because for me, that's really what I was trying to come across with this fabric. It was meant to be a protective layer so that when a person does wear it, they are spiritually protected. So yeah, let me go through my slide, basically. This is the first time I'm actually really looking at my slide, so bear with me. So this dress here, this is called the voodoo dress. And I was commissioned to make this dress for a girl's 21st birthday. And during the process of making this, I'd never made a dress before up until that point. I trained with a costume designer, but he preferred to work on suits and very sort of, turn-of-the-century suits for West End theatre, Wicked, to be exact. So when I was asked to make this dress, I was thinking, crap, I never made a dress. But I had this deep faith that, I need to take this opportunity, actually. It was quite a lot of money involved as well. So I said, okay, I'll do it. I'll make something. And the criteria was savage beauty. You probably are aware of Alexander McQueen. And this girl was looking for a dress from the Savage Beauty collection, and I just kind of laughed at her. I was like, you'll never find one. They're not really for sale in Alexander McQueen anymore. But I can make something like it, So I did a drawing, and I drew this up. And she was like, I love it. I want it. Please, let's make it. And that was that moment where I was like, okay, the drawing was good, but, but what about actually doing it? So I started going around London, sourcing fabrics, looking through my mother's collection, because she's also a collector, so she has a good inventory of great materials and fabrics. And bit by bit, we started to piece this dress together. And it was very ritualistic, making this dress, where really, when we would get to one stage in the making, we would kind of pause and be like, where do we go next? What's the next step? And then you just have to jump and have a leap of faith. And bit by bit, at one point, it was coming to the day of the event, and the dress still wasn't finished. And I remember having I think I slept maybe about 10 hours that week. It was quite ridiculous. But being in that sort of half awake, half asleep state, it's quite easy to hear voices and be like trusting, like, oh yeah, that sounds about right, you know, because you're so exhausted that you go with much more of instinct. And that started to awaken myself to listening to that sort of mystical side of creating, where I was like, what's that voice? Maybe I should go with it, you know? There's nothing really physical in front of me telling me I should use this fabric this way, but let me try it. And yeah, bit by bit, I was able to create works that actually haven't really been coming from my mind, but much more from a deeper, much more cosmic place. Okay, so let's look. So this piece here, this is called the Lotus Dragon. And yeah, in my Buddhist practice, again, I like talking about my Buddhist practice a lot. But the lotus is a very significant flower within the natural world, where basically it flowers and seeds at the same time. And that's meant to show the simultaneous of cause and effect. And because most flowers they either do one or the other, you know, so to have it both happening at the same time, it's the only plant that does it. So the lotus is right in the middle, very large, so that you could see it, because, yeah, cause and effect is fundamental in my practice. And that's the back of it. So I was using, again, very old fabrics, the dragons from a 1950s Chinese kimono, handmade embroidery. And also, if you look at the shoulders, the embroidery is from a Victorian piano shawl. And usually those two fabrics wouldn't sit together, you know, the kind of different places, different practices, different cultures. But it was through that dialogue with the fabric, that deep sort of intrinsic dialogue, I was able to find a meaning and a understanding between the two. This is just some up-close details of another jacket. This piece here, this is called the Sad Boy piece. And actually, I sold this piece to Domenico Dolce from Dolce & Gabbana. You know, what he does with it, I don't know, but hey. I called this piece the Sad Boy piece because, I mean, I didn't document it very well, but on the left side of the chest of this jacket, there's a leather carving that I made, and it's depicting a young soldier from World War I, and he got his hands in his head, you know, in his face, and he looks, you know, quite forlorn and sad. And I made this piece completely again, it was an art project for me. I wanted to express my passion for, you know, opposing war right now, you know, because I feel like we live in such a sort of civilized time, but yet we are still practicing arts of killing each other, you know, and we're sending friends and families and, you know, everyone's kind of connected, and we're sending them out there to in effect end one's life, you know. And that for me was really why I made this piece, because I wanted to really express how much I was upset about that. So it is quite a beautiful statement, but at the same time, it's meant to be quite sad, you know, a bit like how heroic life can be, you know, it can seem quite epic and beautiful, but at the same time, it's quite sad. That's the back of another jacket that I made. I wouldn't go into too much detail about it, but basically, on the left side of it, you can see it's lighter, and then on the right side is a bit darker, and that's meant to represent the fading of night to day. And it being a three-dimensional piece or sculpture for me, it's kind of like that continuation, because you can walk around it, and that continuous night and day would keep confronting you. This piece here is called Naushtan, and this was exhibited again in my exhibition earlier this year. And Naushtan is an Arabic word, and it's for the symbol of the cross that has the snake going around it. And you see that like usually outside of pharmacies. But the whole backstory of Naushtan, which I didn't know at the time of making this piece, was that God asked Moses to erect the Naushtan, and yeah, funny because my name is Moses, yeah. But yeah, this piece, yes. So to erect the Nuushtan, because for those that believe in God, they will be protected from the snake's venom. And I think that's why pharmacies adopted it, because it's kind of like chemicals and protection and venom and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, so at the back there's this cross that you could, it's quite abstract, but for me it's there. And then on the top part of the shoulders there's some python skin. So that's the Nuushtan for me. So this is kind of my newer works, actually. I've started to shift between being an artist and a designer. So I've used the skills that I learned while being, training as a costume designer and doing my 3D sculptures, and I've decided to work on tapestries now. So this is a large cowhide that I've used very traditional techniques of like leather carving and dyeing and embellishment and embroidery to actually create a whole new narrative and a story. And again, while making this piece, it was much more of finding out about the piece while it was being made. It wasn't like I had the idea and I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do, It was much more about, oh, I feel like this fabric here or this embroidery needs to go in this part of the narrative. And bit by bit, it was kind of like watching a movie unfold before my very eyes, because I was like, ooh, this person's interacting with that thing. Wow, oh, okay. And then, after it took me about 1 complete month of solid work, but actually it was enjoyment, of solid enjoyment. I got to the place of creating this piece, which is called Hell is the Land of Tranquil Light. Yeah, no, I laugh too sometimes. Yeah, hell is the land of tranquil light. And people would usually say, what the hell does that mean? Well, some people get it straight away and they go, yes, yes, yes. But sometimes you get you get people being like, what is that? And for me, it was this experience that I had while being in the Caribbean, where my parents are from, and being on the beach and being very depressed while having like coconuts and palm trees all around me. And I was like, what? This is profoundly deep, because I could observe the fact that I was in a place which looks like paradise, basically. And inside me, I'm really depressed. And I wanted to really try and depict that space within this art piece where people would feel that, oh yeah, hell is not about where you are. It's really about how you are inside, internally. So these are closer up details. And if you look very carefully, I've even used film negatives to create the palm trees. And I don't know if you can see, but even in the bottom part of the film, there's Soviet tanks from 1970s Russia. And that's partly due to the fact that this film is from a 1970s Russian film. So it's really about kind of throwing the uncanny out there, where people would think, but what is a 1970s Soviet Russian tank doing in something that looks like, the Caribbean? And I was like, well, it's probably because there's connections there, Again, yes, so I've used snake skin, I've used embroidery, I've used the leather techniques. I've even used at the top of the tree, you'll see these 2 shiny things, which are meant to be coconuts, but they're actually made from tamarind fruit. So the seeds that are left in tamarind fruit. So again, repurposing things and not just throwing things to the bin, but actually finding a new world for them to live in. Yeah, so there you can see the film. Again, there's a silhouette of a Russian man. So yeah, this is the dress right there. So that's the 10 worlds. And I already explained it to you, I think. So yeah, that's some closer up details of the African fabric. And the reason why I put the tiger behind there in that way is usually, there was a moment where I could have chose to have the tiger out, being very prolific right in the front. But I thought to myself, yeah, in the jungle, tigers, they're not going to be standing all proud like that. They'll jump up on you on your back and just end you, So I was like, okay, let's have it hiding, hiding in the thicket behind what happens to be the warrior's fabric, the kuba. Again, that's just a close-up detail of the dress, and this is just a little fairly dark-skinned baby. But again, it was a found object. My mother found it, and I decided to dye it and make it. It was originally blonde like the hair, you know, but I left the hair blonde. And yeah, again, to really kind of keep that contradiction going on. You know, I'm not really trying to be pro this or pro that. It's really about finding a middle ground for everyone. And yeah, this is the Saha world, which translates into to bear or to endure. And if you look carefully, I think, yes, here, you can see that there's a person's hands in the air and another person laying down and another onlooker. And that was the place where I was at while making this piece. And I felt like I was, you know, split into three. One part of me was looking up into the universe, into the cosmos. Another part of me felt quite ill and defeated. And another part was just like looking on, just like, what's up? You know, and I just felt naturally that's what I had to depict. And even if you look at the characters very closely, I don't know if it's clear here, but the hair that's used is actually my own hair. And that's very much of a ritual thing to do in voodoo or in other practices. And me using it was also to connect with my ancestors. Yes, we got the time coming. I got to finish up. Yeah, so that's just more details. And yeah, this is the final piece of the exhibition, and that's called The Sacrifice. And I had to make sacrifices, you know, no parties, no drugs, you know, just let me get in my spiritual space and work and create. Yeah, so that's it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.